quotes here um, pertaining to higher self yoga, knowledge and conversation. This is from Crowley. The angel is the truth. The angel is in truth the logos or articulate expression of the whole being of the adept, so that as he increases in the perfect understanding of his name, he approaches a solution of the ultimate problem, who he himself truly is. The angel is the spiritual son of the soul of the adept. The angel is the true self of his subconscious self, the hidden life of his physical life. So this I actually wrote. Dreams within dreams. The incarnate circle here on the right is us, all the incarnates in the life personalities matrix. So the various lives, various journeys, realms that the higher intelligence is incarnating in. You are your higher self. Communication is continuous in the waking and dreaming state. The higher self is the inner master, the hidden hand that has organized conditions so the spiritual awakening can occur. The higher self is intelligence. You are also intelligence. The higher self is intelligence operating outside our time space reality. You, i.e., reality, are a spectrum of planes, spectrum of intelligence. So, if there's anything to take away from that, it's you are your higher self. If we use a analogy of a hand, the whole hand is intelligence. The fingers are also the intelligence. The fingers or the incarnates are not necessarily aware that they're part of a larger body of intelligence, which would be the hand, for example. So you can imagine a hand with like tens of thousands or thousands of fingers, and each of those fingers would be an incarnate. The hand itself would be the higher self or organizing principle, and all of this would be encompassed within reality itself, or what I call here God or emptiness. This was covering the phases up to lucid dreaming or out of body. So focus 10 is, or focus 3 is just your normal waking state. 10 is when you're deeply relaxed, your body's asleep. 12 is when you can hit or have intuitive guidance come into the mind's eye or through any of the senses, and then refer to lucid projections as OBEs or lucid dreams. So one of the questions from last week was how do you distinguish between higher self communications, i.e., intuition, and the voice of your own conscious mind, or the voice of beings of the lower astral plane. So what does that mean? Sometimes you'll hear a channeler or a medium and they have a very like doom and gloom message, or the information is just strange, or there's a lot of trickster entities in the spirit realm that are, at least in the immediate non-physical dimension, that we're calling the lower astral plane. It's also referred to as the real time zone. So if you were to have an OBE and you separate from your physical body, the immediate environment you would find yourself in is a reflection. It's a non-physical reflection of the uh, physical environment itself. So here you'd be able to see non-physical entities that people solely locked into the physical dimension are not able to perceive. So you might be able to see energies, all sorts of things that the average person might not have access to. In this immediate non-physical dimension, this real time zone. It's referred to as the lower astral plane, or I mean, Buddhism calls it um, the realm of hungry ghosts. So it's you could describe it as like similar to our um, physical reality, but if there was if you were to take it like one octave lower in vibrational density, you'd find this type of purgatory hungry ghost dimension. And this is really where the voices or the some of the lower astral entity phenomena that people describe can occur. So paranormal phenomena or the typical things that go bump in the night that people get concerned about. If you ever had an OBE and you've seen like a strange looking being or a being that appeared to be lost or confused or in a state of psychological distress, you they could be classified as being in the hungry ghost realm. They're in this kind of perpetual nightmare or amnesic loop. Because many beings are in this state, when people do spiritual work or channeling, you could even come through tarot or plant medicines. There could be contact with entities from this particular spectrum or from this particular level of the spectrum. And the messages that they give are usually, doom and gloom, the world's going to end, all this stuff that you hear coming out of the mouths of schizophrenics. It's very common to encounter some of this stuff. So, how do we know that what's speaking to us is of a higher vibration or of a higher level of intelligence compared to these lower astral beings, for example? One of the first indicators, and we're this is you can pay attention to this little point here. It says five senses in the mind, guidance, conscious, the deep mind. Psychic data is registered through the inner aspect of the five senses. So they're inner senses. So in the same way that you actually smell um, sense like roses, you have an inner sense of smell as well in your mind's eye, in your imagination. These are the inner senses. So you can actually recall the smell of a rose. It's not as clear or as palpable as the actual scent, but you can still distinguish between scents in your imagination. You can distinguish between tastes in your imagination. You can distinguish between feelings in your imagination as well. So all of the sense faculties that you have in the physical apparatus, you actually also have in the mind's eye, in the imagination. It's here that psychic data can be perceived and also actually bleed into the five physical senses as you experience them. What's an example of that? So let's say you're doing the higher self opening intention and you're getting very relaxed. And as you begin to feel drawn into the higher self, one of your signals that you're entering an altered state or that you're entering communication is that you start to smell roses. What you'll find is that these signals are generally consistent. So for me, when I do the higher self intention and I say higher self now, and I start to relax, there's some physiological markers that are very specific that begin to arise. And these are the markers and indicators that you could look out for. So Kelvin in a class last week, he mentioned sorry, there's a plane going over. He mentioned the energetic signature of the higher self. So how the higher self specifically feels to him. He ascertained that signature from an OBE. So because he had an OBE, now he knows how that particular plane of consciousness or what that particular level of intelligence feels like, even in the waking state. So the conscious mind feels a certain way. You have it has a specific texture. So you can consider that right now. Like just think of how you normally talk to yourself throughout your day. And maybe that part, also that part of your conscious mind that tells you what you should and you shouldn't do. So the actual conscience. Feel for the texture of these particular voices compared to if you've ever had, um, you've ever heard the voice of the higher self, or you've ever heard um, a voice, like the voice or guidance. And you'll see that there's a difference not only in texture, but even in pace, for example. Like my normal conceptual conscious mind, it speaks and processes very rapidly, whereas communications from the higher self, if they're verbal, are often slow, at least in my case. So it's different depending on each person. Maybe for you, your higher self speaks to you at a rapid speed. There's a famous channeler named Bashar. When he enters that state, his channeling is very fast. There's no breaks. So it doesn't mean that communications always have to be slow. It's just that in my case, they tend to be quite slow. I'll give you a good example, and I've explained this before. Um, a good question to ask is, what's the most important thing for me to know right now? So you go into meditation, connect with the higher self. You say higher self now, you relax, you let go, and you ask, what is the most important thing for me to know right now? Higher self, what is the most important thing for me to know right now? You ask that question and you wait. Some of you may just have like a stream of information come through immediately. Notice the effect that that data stream has on your physiology. If it's a lower astral being or your conscious mind, it's not going to produce a elevated effect to your physiology or to your energy. Your conscious mind is not going to talk you into the experience of bliss. A lower astral being is also not going to talk you into an experience of bliss or a heart opening. When I asked that question, what's the most important thing for me to know right now? This was like a few months back, or 2 or 3 months back. So I just got one word, and the word was endure. And when that word came down or came through, the entire physiology responded. So in short, the key here really between discerning what voice is speaking to you is to assess the response in the physiology. If the response in the physiology is negative, or you begin to feel worried or unsafe, you can be certain that that's not the higher intelligence. The higher intelligence has no reason to make you feel unsafe. It has no reason to tell you, okay, tomorrow, something awful is going to happen. So you may get premonitions in dreams or messages in dreams of events before they occur. That can definitely happen. But I'm saying like a doom and gloom message, it's just generally not common. Yeah. So discerning and being aware of what the effect on the physiology is and what the signals are is important. So, what are other examples of signals that are related to the senses? You may feel, for example, that your body is floating. That could be a particular signal. You may feel that your body is spinning. That may be a particular signal for you. So you want to look for the physiological markers when you're doing the higher self opening intention.